Wonderful. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The film is available at no charge on 2 YouTube channels. So if anybody wants to go back and see any part of it again, or see it all again, or recommend it to friends, no problem. It's on Stand With Us TV's YouTube channel and JBS TV's YouTube channel. So whichever one you want, the same film. You just see a different logo in the lower right-hand corner. So that's, and give you a little idea, we first started streaming in April of this year between the 2 platforms combined and the JBS TV cable channel broadcast. We've had over 200,000 online and broadcast views. So that probably translates to more than 300,000 people, plus everyone like you who've come to screenings all over the country. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's go to...
I'm sorry, but just really quick, I want to make sure I acknowledge the Jewish Community Day School, the Jewish Federation, and the ADL. There's Brad Phillipson, Dr. Phillipson from the Day School, Laura Figger from the Federation, for helping us put on this this evening. So thank you both. Oh, this is here, and from the ADL.
Hey, thank you. All right, now before we go any further, now that Mom is back, I would respectfully ask Mom and Grandma, Becky and Billy, to please stand up and take a bow if you can. Billy Carno, formerly known as Billy Karnofsky. Does that name ring a bell? Okay, her in-laws were the ones who helped Louis Armstrong become who he was. Great. So Billy and Mel's son, right, longtime members of the shul, and
That family can play Louis Armstrong and Blake Ziegler.
yeah, there you go. I'm a erstwhile jazz musician, so I know all about Louis Armstrong, and when I found out, it was one of so many amazing experiences along the way of making this film, made it all worthwhile. And make no mistake about it, there were plenty of challenges, but we would not be stopped or deterred. We were going to make this film. It had to be made, and I'm so glad that we did, and I'm so glad that you're all here. It really means a lot. It means a lot to the Jewish people, not just to me. So I first want to, we have an amazing panel, so I'm going to get through this as quickly as possible. But first, I'd like to have a show of hands. I see we lost some people, but on those who are here, show of hands. Who is a Tulane alumnus? Oh, yeah. Oh, now you're talking. Okay, now I know what I got to do. Okay. Any Tulane students? I know Rami and Owen. Okay, and you? What's your name? Abby? Emmy, welcome, Emmy. Good. Okay, great. Any Tulane? I was just going to ask. Okay, faculty, staff. Okay, you're an employee. What do you do? Good for you. Welcome. Hope it wasn't too uncomfortable, because it might get a little more uncomfortable in the next few minutes. Thank you for coming. Yes, you.
I graduated from Newcomb in 1975. My dad worked for Tulane University. Name's Dr. Joseph Cohen. He was an English professor for 38 years, but he was also interim dean at one time.
Okay.
And down in the Jewish Studies program.
Wow, I've heard so many great things about that right there. I'll tell you a little secret. You and I are in the same vintage.
And I do want to mention that while I have the floor, I do want to mention that anti-Semitism on Tulane campus is nothing new. My dad used to talk about it all the time when I was a kid. And one of the deans of Newcomb retired, I think. And they made my dad interim dean, which means you're not going to be the next dean. And he always said that was anti-Semitic. that they didn't choose him for the dean because he was Jewish.
You two ladies know each other?
We both.
Okay. All right, good. This is great. Any elected officials here tonight? No? Okay, media? You don't have to, it's okay if you don't want to say it. People from other schools? Anybody connected with another school? Okay. And finally, people of other faiths, if you want to make yourself known. There we go. We have someone there. Hi. I'm sorry?
A lot of people know me.
A lot of people know you? Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, so here's my little spiel to get this rolling. The founding fathers never envisioned social media or the echo chambers it has created to defeat the purpose of free speech by steering people away from the open marketplace of ideas, including by intimidating them into hiding their identities and views at schools whose very mission is to foster and encourage such discourse. The only way to reopen that marketplace at Tulane, and we have a lot of Tulane people here, so I'm going to focus on Tulane for now, is to demand that the school does the following. 1, publicly adopt, embrace, and apply the IRA definition, along with consequences for conduct which constitutes anti-Semitism under that definition, which the federal government has already done under Title VI. By doing so, Tulane would send a clear message, which has apparently not yet been sent, right, or received, that anti-Semitism by students, faculty, staff, or anyone else will not be tolerated at Tulane. 2, publicly commit to require departments to offer and support a diversity of civilly expressed viewpoints in addition to prohibiting discrimination and hostile learning environments. In the age of biased and often factually inaccurate social media echo chambers, schools have a heightened responsibility to foster and encourage the teaching of different viewpoints, critical thinking, and civil and respectful discourse among those who disagree with each other to fulfill their mission to find truth and promote intellectual development. 3, publicly explain that with academic freedom comes academic responsibility to adhere to the truth, encourage civil debate in the open marketplace of ideas, and never suppress anyone's right to civilly express their opinions or intimidate them into hiding their identity for social, academic, or any other reasons. Good so far? Yes. Okay. Number 4, require anti-Semitism awareness training in freshman orientation as sought by the Tulane students that you just saw in Blind Spot. We are here tonight because Tulane and Tulane Hillel tried to suppress free speech when they canceled Blind Spot's campus screening in April. Yes, they did. By all appearances, they were afraid of what Tulane senior Bali Levine, I'm going to spell her name in case you want to look her up, Balilavine. They were afraid of what Tulane senior Bali Levine and others might have said that night about the school's response and or lack thereof to anti-Semitism, the allegations contained in multiple Title VI complaints against the school. As a New Yorker and an alumnus of the University of Pennsylvania, I never thought that I would see CUNY and Penn become the havens for anti-Semitism that they have become. So I am here to tell you that it can happen at Tulane too. In fact, the process has been underway for years, as this lady just indicated. And its conclusion may be closer than you think. So I would urge those of you who are concerned about it to act now to prevent and reverse it before it's too late. The two-pronged message of Blind Spot is beware the evil of indifference, and God helps those who help themselves. There appears to be too much indifference at Tulane. Demand that it ends. Demand the full-throated enforcement of Jewish students' civil rights, just as the school should and would do for any other people protected under the Civil Rights Act. Go to school officials, faculty, elected officials, and the media, and articulate your concerns and expectations in no uncertain terms. Let them know that you are serious and that you expect an equally serious response. You can look into all of the pending Title VI complaints against Tulane. It's public information. I'd be happy to help you with that. You have a right to know under the law, and it might be helpful for you to know what has been alleged. Regarding elected officials, keep in mind that the two most powerful people in the U.S. House of Representatives are from right here in Louisiana. Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Both are strong allies. You don't have to agree with them on other issues to seek their help on this one. It's par for the course in politics, which often makes for strange bedfellows, as you know. Their help and support could make a big difference, especially if Tulane's president is called to testify before the House Education and Workforce Committee. With that said, I'd like to turn to our panel, and I'd like to start with Nathaniel Miller, who is a senior at Tulane. He has been published by the Allgemeine, the Jerusalem Post, and the Times of Israel. He is a camera fellow, right? And you're the head of Tulane APAC, correct? Formal head.
He is over there now.
Oh, he is over there, Rami. Rami's a fellow New Yorker. We grew up, we lived not far from each other. Another amazing young Tulane student, current Tulane student. You are too, Owen. I'll leave you out. Okay. I'm just gonna ask a quick open-ended question, Nathaniel, which is, can you please explain to our friends what it's like to be a pro-Israel Jewish student at Tulane today? Talk about whichever experiences you think you can talk about to illustrate the point, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to just say,
Hold the button down.
so I'm sorry, guys.
You want this one?
Maybe.
I'll try to get that fixed.
This one working?
Yes.
All right. First of all, I just want to thank all of you here, especially Rabbi Gerber, Lenny, this incredible documentary, and all of you for being here. It really does mean so much to me and to the Jewish community of Tulane University that you guys are here and that you care about us, that you're listening to our perspective on all this. So as you all know, after October 7th, there was an explosion of anti-Semitism, riots and protests all across college campuses. And unfortunately, Tulane University was not exempt from this trend. As you know, on October 25th, just weeks after the Hamas attacks, there was a protest that turned to violence right on Ferret Street, a street that runs right through Tulane's campus.
It's in the film.
It's in the film, yes. At this protest, first of all, there was vitriol, there was anti-Semitic slurs being thrown around, there was physical intimidation, and then it escalated to the point where, as you've seen this red truck drove by, and then attempted to burn an Israeli flag. I very impulsively grabbed the Israeli flag to stop it from being set on fire. I had my fellow students jump in to try to defend me. You know, I was beaten over the head. I didn't get the worst of it. My friend Dylan Mann, who I think is a hero, jumped in to protect me. And this was just one instance, but it marked the first instance of a violent anti-Semitic attack at a college university. And it led to a trend across other universities. As you know, Tulane is not Columbia. There are a lot of great things about Tulane University. We don't have Students for Justice in Palestine. We have a group called SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, which ironically opposes all the democratic societies. But they're just a much more weak and pathetic version of SJP. And additionally, we have, a remarkably strong Jewish community that stands up for ourselves and we stand up for each other. We have great institutions. We have Chabad. We have the Jewish Studies Department, which is the one department at Tulane that I feel comfortable expressing my views in. However, there are also problems, as you've seen in the film, and as you probably know, just from living here. We do deal with, there's active anti-Semitism. There was the encampment on the lawn of Gibson that excluded Jewish students, stopped classes, and violated both Tulane rules and New Orleans law. And we have, I think there's a level of organizational rot in some of these academic departments. When I walk into the political science building, I'm not comfortable sharing my identity as a Zionist. I'm not comfortable when I walk into that building and I see the posters lining the walls, decolonialism, resistance. These are all, I know what these mean. You all know what these mean. These people are not supportive of the state of Israel. They're not supportive of the Jewish people. And I know that I and my fellow students are often uncomfortable sharing our views and our identity in academics.
Excellent. Before we move on, I just want to make sure you and I have been through a lot of communications. I want to make sure we covered everything. I think you did. I think one of the points that should be underscored here is the social and academic risks of being openly Zionistic, which means openly supportive of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state and the Jewish people's right to self-determination and self-defense in our indigenous ancient homeland, which is virtually verbatim what Clayton said in the film to define Zionism. So that's, and those risks have really never existed. Oh, yeah, I guess you can hear me anyway. Thank you. Those risks, as far as I could tell, didn't exist until maybe 5 years ago. My son here is a recent graduate of Tulane, graduated in 2018. Did you ever feel the way Nathaniel feels? He's a man of few words, but he's shaking his head no. No. So that gives you an idea. 7 years ago, nothing. Now, much different. And truth be told, his twin brother went to Penn, graduated the same year. I would say the same about Penn. And we know Penn very well because I went there, my wife went there, we visited both schools while the boys were there. No, it's only since then, but not long after 2018. I mean, it was still long before October 7th. And this is important to keep in mind that this has been allowed to happen. Now, maybe the seeds of it go back much further, but the outward manifestations of it have really exploded in the last, let's say, 7 or 8 years. And as a result of that, we are where we are. So I want to move on to Arnie and Blake, and hopefully have enough time to answer everybody's questions. Arnie, I don't think it needs much of an introduction for the local audience. I don't have your bio handy, but I know your resume is longer than the space from here to the back of the room. And most recently, you were CEO of the New Orleans Federation, correct? And of course, we made that point in the film. So Arnie has had some, obviously, experience fostering positive Black Jewish relations, which you talked about in the film. And then as a city councilman, well, maybe it was after you were in the city council, you had that experience with the BDS resolution in City Hall. So if you want to talk about those two things or anything else that's pertinent, sure, the floor is yours.
Happy to. Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for being here, and Rabbi, thanks for hosting, and Letty, thanks for coming up and coming down and showing this film. This is seen the film a few times now, and every time I watch it, it becomes more powerful with what's going on, and especially in the aftermath of October 7. To see the images, it's heartbreaking, candidly, on all of this. And at the same time, when you hear the music and you hear the words "Am Yisrael Chai" and you hear, the positivity, it makes you feel really good about being Jewish. So a couple things, and I see Henry Miller in the audience tonight, and Henry was the chairman of the board my first 2 years with the Federation, and collectively, and not without some objection by a few. I thought that it was really important that the Federation broaden out its role. the Federation has largely been an organization that serves Jewish agencies and Jewish people. And as I sat on the dais of the city council after Katrina, I saw all of the organizations, Catholic Charities and BCM, and I saw them have this very much expanded role for the entire community. And in consultation with Henry and our board and others, and through the generosity of a major donor in our city, we were able to create the first ever in New Orleans independent center that brings people together. And in this case, largely Jewish, African American, Jewish, Hispanic, LGBTQ+, and other diverse groups. So some would wonder, well, why would we do that? We're a Jewish organization. Why would we utilize resources and staff and time? And the answer is, if you want to combat anti-Semitism, if you want to combat hate and discrimination, the best way to do it is collectively. When you see hate, whether it be against the African American community or Jewish community or anybody, we no longer can stand aside and basically say that's their problem. It's not their problem. It's all of our problem. And I think when we stand shoulder to shoulder and say we're not going to tolerate it, we're not going to allow for it, we're much more effective in combating it. And I'm very proud because the center is still in existence. Federation is here, and it's had a little bit of change, but it's still doing excellent work, and its executive director is still there, and he's out into the entire community at large, trying to create relationships with historic organizations, the Urban League, ACLU, NAACP, the Hispanic Chamber, you name it, in order to bring us together. And I will tell you, it became even more important after October 7th, because in the aftermath of that, we needed allies, we needed friends. And I know my own synagogue, Rabbi Bowman, and Rabbi Gergen did the same thing, brought people together from different faiths in order to talk about what we're facing and what Israel was facing. And again, I think this is one of the very best initiatives that Federation has put in place. I think we're still the only federation in the country that has an independent center like it does. And all of us in New Orleans should be very proud of it. As it relates to the BDS situation, this was very interesting. Some of you may know I served as the president of the city council from 2006 to 11. I thought I was done at 11. Literally the first 2 months of my job with the Federation, we got word at about 6 o'clock at night one night. I got a couple calls from national reporters saying, hey, how does it feel for New Orleans to be the first city in America where the city council has endorsed and supported BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions? And my first reaction was, what are you talking about? Well, apparently at the city council meeting, and this was 2017, I believe, maybe 2018, I think it's 2017, at the end of the city council meeting, which is basically a meeting where all you're doing is reading the agenda for the next meeting, a very small but very aggressive group of individuals had lobbied one member of the council, okay, and asked that person to lead an effort to pass a resolution. And candidly, it was framed in a very generic way, involving peace, involving this, involving that. At the end of the day, it was about boycotting Israel and creating sanctions. The rest of the council went along with it, passed it. This was done that day at the end of a meeting, which, by the way, there's an agenda for city council, and it's the exception, not the norm, that you're allowed to actually change the agenda, okay? They were able to change the agenda and get this done. Anyway, we got this call, Henry, you probably remember this, it was, we said, this can't be. So the first thing we did literally that night is, and fortunately, I did have some relationships still with the council members, I called each one of them and I said, what are you doing? Do you know what you did? Who led this? Why would you do this? And do you understand that you have become a national and an international story? Because by that evening, the entire world was putting out social media accounts and other media saying New Orleans, look, we want to be number one for a lot of things, but I don't think we want it to be the number one first city in America to pass BDS. Good news is we worked very hard on it over a few days. Every council member basically said, look, we didn't know what we were doing. That's not what we meant. And while that is a bit of an excuse, okay, I'll give them that. The fact is that we quickly pulled the resources together. We had an event at one of our prominent members of the community's house that week. The council members, you can't bring all 7 together under open meeting laws, but we brought 3 together at a time and the others were listening. And 2 weeks later at the next council meeting, I'm proud to say that the council 7-0 reversed the decision. And if any of you were there, it's very interesting because normally the city council meetings, are downtown in City Hall. That council meeting 2 weeks later was at the Algiers School Board, okay, which is much smaller. And there were dozens and dozens of protesters that were very upset with the city council. Many of them couldn't get in the room, but it was loud, it was noisy, and and they made a lot of hay about this. But we did reverse it, and I'm not going to call out names here because there was one council member, candidly, that I think led the effort and knew what was happening. But to the benefit of the other council, they very quickly reversed course. And so we should as a community be very happy about BTS. Look, BTS is a tactic. It has been a failure. It has not worked. Okay, some of the groups that are anti-Zionist are pro-BDS. All right, but fortunately, I think it is kind of lost a lot of steam. It's still out there, but it's lost a lot of steam, and hopefully we won't see it again. And I do want to just say one last thing about our elected officials, from our mayor-elect to the new city council, to the leaving members of the city council. We have had in New Orleans a very, very supportive group of people. You should know this. A year ago, every council meeting, there was an effort by a pro-Palestinian advocacy group for the council to pass anti-Israel legislation. The council stood tall and never did that, despite tremendous pressure coming upon them. And they ended up passing it was called a Statement of Peace, NOLA. And I have to tell you, as I watched 2 nights ago, the release of the hostages and the expressions of shalom and peace, that's exactly what the council statement was all about. And the hope that we would eventually get to that place, and we did. So if you see them, give them a big thanks and a hug.
Now you know why you wanted Arnie in the film. There were many conversations over the few years we were filming between me and the filmmakers, who, by the way, they did a great job. A round of applause for Ironbound Films. What they did was, I was the research department, they were the filmmakers, the creative guys, the editors. This was no small feat to put together all of the content that we had, which was probably 100 hours of our original footage, into a 95-minute film, of which about an hour was our footage and the other 35 minutes was, graphics and footage they pulled from the internet. I mean, it was a gargantuan job, and I'll never forget talking about you and the shoot in New Orleans and say, we have to have Arnie. We have to.
Just 2 things. First of all, the 3 women that you saw at Cafe Du Monde with me, they're incredible. I mean, they were so talented. They motivated me, and it was wonderful to deal with them. And then I have to tell you, my mom's birthday is being, the 90th is being celebrated this weekend. And now that she knows that I'm in a film, she thinks I could get tickets for the Academy Awards.
Tell her we tried, but we couldn't get in. All right, Blake Ziegler, let me tell you, so speaking about the filmmakers, so we're having a weekly production call one day, and Seth Kramer, one of the Ironbound guys, says, Lenny, you're not gonna believe this. Well, what am I not gonna believe? After all we've been, what am I not gonna believe? Well, we found a Jewish student at Notre Dame. Oh, okay. Wait, it gets better. And he told me the Louis Armstrong story, and that you play the trumpet. I know, you can't make this up. So, you know, just 2 or 3 days ago, I think I texted you about this. We received a screening inquiry from the College of Holy Cross outside Boston. You got any basketball fans here? Do you know which great NBA player went to Holy Cross? But that's right. Who said that?
Tommy Hudson.
Got it. Okay. All right. You got a real fan. Okay. So, right. So aside from losing, like, I don't know what other players or famous, but it's a great, venerable Catholic school. I don't know if they're a Jesuit school, like Fordham is.
No, they're part of the congregation.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's in Worcester.
It's in Worcester. You're from Worcester, I can tell.
Worcester.
Just like my accent, I can tell your accent. All right, so what I've proposed to Holy Cross, and by the way, they became interested in Blind Spot from a seminar on anti-Semitism at Brandeis in Boston. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's a wonderful world to quote someone who was in film. But that song wasn't. So I propose that we have Blake on the panel to talk about what it's like to be a Jewish student in a Catholic school, and I hope we can make that happen. Because who better than you to talk about that? So with that as an intro, Blake, tell us a little bit about. Yeah, I mean, you say it in the film, but I'm sure you could stand on it.
Yeah. So because this is recorded and I work in this Jewish nonprofit world, I do have to do the obligatory, I am here in my personal capacity, and what I say does not necessarily reflect the opinion of my employer. So just have to get that out of the way since we're on recording. So thank you to everyone for coming out to see this. Thank you to Lenny and the people at Ironbound Films for putting this film together, and the Midseed Project, as well as to Rabbi Gerber and the Gates of Prayer team for hosting this event. It's very meaningful in a lot of ways to be here at the synagogue that all of my life was spent at. My consecration, bar mitzvah, confirmation, all of those days. And I think it's really important to note that there is something special in this congregation, and it's, what is it, 175 years? Yeah. And it's 175 years of history in the community building that it does, because I truly do believe that my passion for Jewish advocacy was born in those early days of being a teaching assistant at this at the Sunday school here. And so just very grateful to be here for that. Talking about Notre Dame, you know, being from New Orleans, we understand that Catholicism has a very significant role in the history and culture of the city. You know, you have the cathedral in the center of the city. There's all of these Catholic schools. I attended one of them. We won't talk about that one tonight. But it wasn't too much of a concern for me to then choose to attend a Catholic university. I think it kind of made sense. And looking back on it and having been able to make so many Jewish friends at other universities and hear what they've gone through, especially with the film, I think that there was something special about attending a religious institution. And I think it speaks to the value of religious liberty that the Jewish community holds. The American Jewish diaspora has largely benefited greatly from the American obsession with religious liberty and the separation of church and state. For many American Jews, particularly Ashkenazi Jews that fled from Europe, as well as Mizrahi Jews, we're very familiar with what happens when the state and the church decide to intermingle, and it does not produce good results for the Jews. And that was a subject that I was really passionate about studying, and going to a Catholic university that not only understood the value of a liberal arts education, but particularly one that looked at the holistic formation of a person, both academically, personally, spiritually, professionally, was really important to me, and I think allowed me to flourish in my Jewish identity in a lot of ways that other universities wouldn't allow. With that said, though, I alluded in the film and mentioned that Notre Dame was a great place to be a Jew, that the university was largely cooperative on a number of measures to increase representation of Jews, to accommodate the needs of Jewish students, ranging from kosher dining options in our dining hall to excused absences for Rosh Hashanah and other high holy days, and even the official implementation of the IRA definition and anti-Semitism awareness in our first year classes for first year students.
You hear that, Tulane?
We were the first top 20 college to do that. I just want to point that out. And with that said, though, I think this incident that I'm going to share highlights that even universities that are committed to this project of religious pluralism and celebrating the whole person and even religious inclusion does have its limits. Not even 2 weeks after they finished filming my portion of the documentary, I was participating in a debate. It was a week before the 2022 midterms, and Notre Dame, amongst a variety of political student organizations, decided to put on a mock debate for the midterms, where we would propose the major policies and platforms of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. During that debate, we decided to discuss abortion because that summer was when the Dobbs v. Jackson decision was released that overturned Roe v. Wade and returned abortion to a state level issue. So it was very much on the mind, both nationally as well as locally, being a Catholic university. And when my opponent decided to say that if you are religious, you have to be against abortion in all instances, and specifically cited the Catholic Church and positioned the Catholic teaching on the issue as the universalistic teaching that all religious people ought to subscribe to, I thought back to the values of religious liberty that American Jews hold dear, and I had to say that that does not speak for my faith. Catholicism is not my faith. Christianity is not the legislation of the land, and I, as a Jew, should not be expected to follow laws that are passed through a Christian mindset. And I talked about how within the Jewish faith, there is diversity of opinion on the permissibility of abortion on a variety of circumstances. Now, regardless of where you stand on that spectrum, I think we will agree that this person's response to that was abhorrent. And he said in response that I don't know much about Judaism, but I do know that the Aztecs sacrificed children, so we shouldn't listen to you. Now, there's a lot going on in that statement. One of which he did know about Judaism because we had a conversation about it in the days leading up to the debate. But the other parts of that was, there was an anti-indigenous statement, the implication of the Aztecs sacrificing children, but there was the invocation of the classic bloodline, the association of a Jewish student standing up and saying a tenement of his faith and now being associated with sacrificing children. And particularly in the context of abortion, the kind of anti-abortion side of that debate, often there are fringes that will discuss how child sacrifice, that abortion is a form of child sacrifice provoked by the Jews in order to sustain their power over the world. That is a conspiracy over on the fringes of kind of that part of the debate. And when I decided to call out the opponent for invoking anti-Semitism in that debate and for doing such a reprehensible thing to conflate Judaism to child sacrifice, the audience decided to boo me. And you can hear in the video of the debate that's on YouTube, you can hear the very visible boos. In that moment, there was a lot going on in my mind, as well as in the days after the debate, because the result was the far right, this commentator on that side of the political spectrum, decided to publish an article with me. He has a fairly large audience, a few 100,000 subscribers across platforms. And that article was a 15,000 word piece accusing me of being sent by the Jewish lobby to undermine Notre Dame's Catholic character. As a result of that, for about the next year and a half, I received frequent death threats in my email, on my phone. Students on campus harassed me. At one point, the university police department had to take control of my email to filter it. To make sure that I didn't see any content that I shouldn't be seeing. And there were physical assaults on campus or altercations on campus. And there were even some instances where my information got leaked online, and there were a few letters that got sent back home to my family, including some of those threats. Notre Dame's response to that was they could not do anything to the student that caused all of this because he was not actually a Notre Dame student. He was a student at a nearby college, and we had a policy of welcoming students from the nearby colleges in our activities. And that moment was very difficult for me because for the previous 4 years, me and the administration had worked so hard to produce such a strong environment for Jewish students. But in that moment, when it was politically expedient for them to not have to wade into that debate about abortion and blood libel and students literally on live television committing hate speech and invocating hate crimes against another student, that they decided to utilize bureaucratic means and to be able to wash their hands of it and say, not our problem. And it wasn't until literally 2 weeks before my graduation that I was able to sit down with the president of the university and get a commitment that an action like that wouldn't happen again. And so I shared that to say that I think if they had filmed the documentary 2 weeks later, when they had visited me, or 6 months later, I probably still would agree that Notre Dame and being in a Catholic environment or even a religious environment was good for being a Jewish student. But from that particular instance, it reminded me that ultimately as Jews, we are left to advocate for ourselves, that we cannot rely on the goodwill of institutions or communities that are not our own to always have our best interest at heart. And the last thing that I'll say, because I've been talking for a while, is I've been reading a lot of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel over the last year, and there's a book he wrote called The Prophets. And in it, he is obsessed with the idea of why did the prophets get so obsessed and inoculated with even the tiniest sins that the Israelites were committing. And he says it's because for the prophets, it's even the tiniest act against God is still an act against God that needs to be conveyed and condemned and worked against. And when I think about the work that I do now in the Jewish world and the advocacy that I do, and looking back on my time at Notre Dame, that's the best way to describe it, is despite those incidents, despite the lack of progress, or even the instances of progress that didn't go far enough, I think it is our job as Jews to follow that tradition of the prophets and to take a stand at every injustice that we see, no matter how small or who it affects.
My late mother would love hearing what you just said, because God helps those who help themselves was one of her favorite expressions. And you just said it. And to relate it to the film, you know, we have 5 significant non-Jewish voices in the film. You know, Richie Torres, Dion Pierre, Carly Gamble, Tanya Tetlow, and Raymel Green, the amazing Tulane student. And I think you could go down the line, and they each come from a different walk of life and different age groups. But I think if you go down the line, the one thing they have all in common is that they came to help us because we helped ourselves, not because we went to them and said, please save us, and if they get us, they're going to get you next. No, but they saw us stand up and take the risks, as you have done so admirably, Nathaniel, and so many of the students in the film. You have to remember, all those students in the film, they knew that they were acting at tremendous personal risk to themselves, personal academic risk to themselves, and that if there were going to be any changes made, it would not happen while they were still in school. They were doing what they did because they felt it was right, it was necessary, and to help the next generation. And, you know, a lot of people, it's human nature for a lot of people to look at folks who are willing to stand up and take those risks and say, yeah, I'll help you. I will help you. So that's important. And now we can segue to Tanya Tetlow, because I think a lot of people in New Orleans recognize her name. She was at one point chief of staff to the president of Tulane law professor, and then of course she was president of Loyola. And I don't know how many people know that she sang in the high holiday choir of Touro Synagogue for 17 years. So when she says she likes to send emails to explain the Jewish holidays, she really knows what she's talking about. She's a very extraordinary woman. But to your point also about the mixed, experience, let's call it of being at a non-Jewish religious institution, Fordham won't screen the film. Now, they didn't pull a Tulane and schedule it and then cancel it 3 days earlier, but they won't screen the film, and I think it's because they're afraid of protest. And you have to hand it to Fordham. They were the first school that said no to SJP. So they're not afraid, and I'll tell you a quick story. I have an Irish Catholic friend back in New York. He's got 3 daughters. They've all gone to Notre Dame. He told me that the youngest one, who was there when the encampments broke out, told him that there was an encampment at Notre Dame. I don't know if you know the story. There was an encampment at Notre Dame. The school administrators called the protesters into the building and they said, okay, here, you got the floor. Tell us what you want to say. So the leader of the group starts talking, and a few minutes later, the school administrator looks at his watch and said, okay, you're 12 minutes in. And just so you know, by school rule, you got 15 minutes. So you got 3 minutes left to finish your spiel, and then you're out of here. And that's what happened. The guy finished his spiel, they left, and that was the end of the encampment. That's how Notre Dame dealt with encampments. And to me, that says a lot about that school, and Fordham as well. You don't have to be a religious school to have rules and enforce them, and to have and to offer a values-based education as opposed to an individual-based education, those were phrases that Tanya used, but that didn't make it into the final cut of the film. But you don't have to be a religious school to believe in those values and practice those values. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to go to Tulane and say, hey, why don't we encourage and incentivize students to take Jewish studies? We have this wonderful Jewish studies program at Tulane. And you heard Tanya Tetlow talk about how they basically incentivize non-Jewish students to take classes in their Jewish studies program because it helps the students fulfill their humanities requirements. You don't have to be a Jesuit school to do that. That's not rocket science. So with that said, I don't want to take any more time because I do want to take questions. And Rabbi, you're gonna be the mic manager? Okay.
I will facilitate.
Okay.
Does anybody have questions?
You don't have questions, we'll keep talking or we can leave. If you do, now's the time. Our friend from Worcester.
Yeah, I was just curious, most of the movie was based on college kids protesting. Where did they come from? Because we blame professors and everything else. And I went to Clark University in Worcester, which was very largely Jewish institution, and that was back in the 60s. But where the kids are coming from before they get to college, what are they hearing, or what are they not hearing? Well, about history, maybe that's
a great question. It's a little bit outside the scope of the film, but I will tell you, you remember the young man Elliot Sadoff who went to Friends Seminary at Columbia University. This guy's got the record for the most years of experiencing campus anti-Semitism in school. It so happens that my other son also went to Friends Seminary. And so we knew about this problem from the 8th grade on when I first heard about it. This was in 2009. And the main practitioner of it at Friends had come out of a program at, you guessed it, Columbia. So there's been a lot of organized, well-funded indoctrination going on in academia for a long time. I'm not going to say that it's the only source because I'm not an expert on that. I'm sure there are other sources, whether it's religious institutions or cultural institutions or families or whatever. But I do know that it's been going on for a long time. The first film on this subject, campus anti-Semitism, was released in 2004. I encourage everyone to watch it. It's called Columbia Unbecoming. And it's all about Columbia. So they only focused on one school. I don't know to the extent it was going on elsewhere, but it was pretty bad at Columbia. And 20 years later, here we are with, no different. So there are a lot of sources and we need to get at the root of it. And in Blind Spot, you saw various examples of suggestions of how to get to the root of it, with Jewish studies program, with travel to Israel, like Ray Mel Green with Tulane, let's give them some credit. And Dion Pierre suggesting, hey, teach the history. It wasn't always like this for Jews. Things like that can be done. Yes.
I can speak loud. I have two comments. First of all, ADL just came out with a study about grades they get in college campuses.
Yes.
For, and how they dealt with anti-Semitism on campus.
Yes.
Tulane got a B.
I
Every
would.
other campus like,
I understand.
whatever got C, D,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
F.
yeah. If you think Tulane doesn't have much more work to
That's what
do,
I'm
then
telling you,
you're
like,
entitled to your opinion. But I will tell you, and I know the ADL lady is here, and I think,
okay.
oh, it's not you. If she was here,
Right.
she would be the first to tell you that report card is not meant to be a scientific or totally accurate reflection of where a school is at. It's just like a gimmick to remind people that we still very much have a problem. It's not meant to be an accurate assessment.
The second part is with the current administration and getting rid of the education department, what kind of recourse do we have if there are lawsuits against with the Civil Rights Act?
My understanding is the Department of Justice is taking it over. So, the Department of Justice. And by the way, I don't mean to be short. I agree that if the Department of Justice doesn't, we need to stand up and demand that somebody does, whether it's DOJ or DOE, you know, but my understanding is DOJ is. And we'll see.
If I could just add something to that. So again, I'm speaking in my personal capacity. I really want to make sure I'm covering my bases here. So there's an organization featured in the documentary that I have some affiliation with from my time in college called Jewish on Campus, which is an organization founded by students for students and is focused on empowering Jewish students to combat anti-Semitism on campus. One of their main strategies to combat anti-Semitism is Title VI investigations, partnering with the Brandeis Center. And actually, when you saw the situation about the Vermont students, Jewish on Campus was the organization that filed the Title VI complaint. Since then, specifically regarding the current climate that we're in, one thing that JOC has really been pushing is states to adopt Title VI coordinators. So, for example, in the state of New York, just a month or two ago, the governor signed into law a mandate that every public college and university in the state of New York has to have a Title VI coordinator. So just like how campuses have Title IX coordinators to deal with instances of sexual assault, every campus in New York now has to have a Title VI coordinator to deal not just for issues regarding anti-Semitism and discrimination against Jewish students, but writ large. So that is one potential other avenue to deal with these issues. But I highly suggest checking out Jewish on Campus and looking at the incredible work that they're doing.
Laura?
Can everybody?
Yeah.
I have a question. So after October 7th, it seems like the activity, the anti-Semitic activity that had been brewing for years and years and years on college campuses, to fever pitch, right? We saw all these encampments, we saw, protests and these kind of horrific images, building takeovers and stuff. Now that the hostages have returned, now that the war looks like it is winding down, do you think that, we've gotten to a month, right? Do you think that anti-Semitism on college campuses gets better or gets worse?
I'll give you a quick answer, and I'm interested in everybody else's answer. When the government finally started enforcing Title VI the way it was intended to be enforced, you saw no more encampments. So there were no more manifestations of the hatred, but the underlying hatred that was triggered by October 7th, which is, when you find it in faculty and other students, it's still there. That's my opinion. That's my perception. And so we still have a lot of work to do to root it out and to deal with it in an appropriate way. And I suggested several ways in my opening remarks that it could be dealt with. And also what I just mentioned about what various people in the film suggested as well. So no, I think the hate, unless it's dealt with at the root, it's just waiting for the next October 7th type event to explode again. That's my opinion, but.
Yes.
I just would like to add to that. I think the core of the anti-Semitism that we see on campuses is not rooted in the Gaza war. As the film showed, it was there before the war. And the thing that exposes these people the most is the fact that they're opposing a ceasefire to what they consider a genocide. If they consider it a genocide, why are they opposing the end of it? That is the ultimate way to expose it. But ultimately, I think Lenny's completely right. I think the root of this problem remains. I think these people use the war as a front to advocate for the disintegration of the Jewish state. And I think we'll see, I think they'll lose some popular support. You know, maybe the average student who went to 1 or 2 rallies because they saw social media posts won't be going anymore. But these same people, these Nurdin Kiswanis, these types who are at these institutions, they will always be there unless we address this problem at the source.
If anybody wants some feel good watching, look at the interview with the son of Hamas and Nurdin. When she faces off with an actual person who grew up as the son of the founder of Hamas, it'll make you feel better. It's feel good watching for Zionists.
I would just add that it's been amazing over the last week to that the silence is deafening. You know, all of those that were protesting, yelling every day, ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. As soon as it was announced, you heard nothing. I mean, it was truly nothing. And even with all of the good news and the positive feelings in our country and around the world, if you go back and look at what happened over the weekend, you had thousands of people protesting on the streets of London and in other capitals. And it just makes you wonder. I mean, this is about anti-Semitism not on campus, but I think it just brings home that so much of what happens in the world is driven by anti-Semitism, on campus or not on campus. And, you know, that's something we got to work on.
Wait, say something. Okay. You good?
But I think that as everybody's getting a little sleepy, we started the night by questioning whether now the hostages are back, is this film as relevant as before? And it's a resounding yes. And all of these people speaking, and you can even hear it in what Blake said, this was bad before October 7th. And even if it goes back to how it was before, it goes back to being really, really bad. And we all have a role to play in it. And as you said very correctly, where we live, it is uniquely special. Arnie, last year we had the Shabbat for Ukraine, and we were able to invite the member of Congress who actually is holding up the bill. It's a unique opportunity for us in little old Metairie to be able to bring in people who love Israel, will stand up for anti-Semitism, including our governor, who last year signed an authorization for Holocaust Remembrance Week based on a conversation we had with him about education and Holocaust. Our elected leaders will listen to us, and they're allied with us, and we should not take that for granted. I cannot thank y'all enough for being here with us. Nate, I remember texting you a couple years back after saying thank you, saying we always have your back. We always will, even if you're not in New Orleans. Consider us part of your family, part of your home. It takes a lot of courage to be who you are and who you are. And we are your family. We are part of that tradition that's always behind you. Arnie, can't possibly thank you for everything you've done for the Jewish community in New Orleans. And let me tell you, like, I think the day after I heard that the film was pulled from Tulane, I emailed Carol Asher and said, I'll film it, I'll screen it. Because you know, if it upsets anti-Zionists, I want it. So thankful to everybody for being here. Apologies again for the ham that was over there. So Pardos knows better. We think we caught it early, but that's an example of how anti-Semitism has seeped into the world. But yeah, some of y'all are now unkosher. So congratulations to everybody. We think we got it out. I think so. And Vinny's in there conquering the kitchen for us. But thank you again. Thank you to the Zieglers for joining us and Carno, and then thank you for your family coming to be with us. And for those of you at Tulane and at school, anything that we as a congregation can do to support you, we're here for you. And for your next documentary, I want you to go find all those Southern fraternity boys who wouldn't let the protesters burn the American flags. And we're singing God Bless America over the sounds of the anti-Israel beat.
Oh,
That's a good story. That's why my kids will go to college in the South. Okay. All right, thank you, everybody, so much. Let me thank you so much. Thank you. Really good. Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to say hi.
Oh.